All you need to do is do a survey of the pediatric hospitals throughout the country, and you're seeing a considerable number of young people who are not only infected, but who are seriously ill. Again, the numbers compared to the elderly are less, but that's a false comparison. These kids are getting sick. We've really got to make sure we protect them.
Well, that's Dr. Anthony Fauci, of course, sounding the alarm as the highly contagious Delta coronavirus variant spreads across the nation. That variant especially infecting children under 12 years old because they are not yet eligible for the vaccine. The new cases of COVID-19 in kids have more than tripled over the past month. Take a look at this, from just over 23,000 to nearly 72,000, that in just 3 weeks. Florida, Texas, Louisiana, cases skyrocketing. An 11-month-old baby with COVID in Houston had to be airlifted to another city because there were no more pediatric beds available in Houston. So, what do parents need to know to get their kids back in school safely? Noted New York City pediatrician Dr. Laura Popper joins us with the very latest on that. Dr. Popper, welcome.
Thank you.
School is starting, of course. Kids play together. You're going to have them in class, you know, at lunchrooms, the teams. What concerns do you have about what we could face this fall?
If we do the right things, everybody can pretty safely go back to school. There are just two important things. Everybody who can be vaccinated should be vaccinated. We keep our children safe by surrounding them by people who are safe. And number two, and almost as important, is that all children above the age of 2 should be masked, as well as all of the adults. All of us inside in a school setting should be masked.
You know, the masking situation is very controversial. What do you say to those who, you know, we saw Governor Ron DeSantis saying he doesn't want his kids in a mask. He wants to see them smile. You know, what's your sense, and what is the danger, especially with something as contagious as the Delta variant?
Well, I think Governor DeSantis is the danger. His executive order goes against everything that public health has ever tried to do. And this is not a political issue. This is not a Republican or Democrat, liberal, conservative. This is truly public health. If someone said, gee, I really don't like chlorine in water, so you can't put that in my water so the rest of you can get sick from contamination, no, that would be laughable. And what people like Governor DeSantis are doing is laughable and sadly tragic.
Dr. Fauci seems to feel the same, at least in terms of mask wearing. Here's what he said also about wearing masks in school for kids.
For the kids who can't get vaccinated, that's the reason why we're having a strong recommendation that in the schools, everybody should wear a mask, whether or not you're vaccinated. We've got to protect the children, Chuck.
I mean, is the variant especially dangerous to kids? And you know, because they can't get vaccinated, especially when you're under 12. I mean, do you think they will be at some point? What are we going to see to protect the kids better?
No one really knows if the variant is more dangerous in terms of how ill you become. What we do know about it is more transmissible. And kids together will get the illness. Mostly, kids will do okay, far better than the older population, but they're a vector. And until all of us who can be vaccinated are, we have to stay safe. And that means, yes, back to school, because kids have suffered greatly from not being in school. But we can surround them by every person who works at a school should be required to be vaccinated, and everybody should wear a mask. Those are the two things. There's really nothing else. It's not a complicated issue. It's not a we or they issue. It's science.
What do you look out for when you have someone calls up and says that they think their child may have COVID, as opposed to, you know, a rash or a fever? Let me read you something from in Tucson, two parents who have a 6-year-old boy who came down with COVID. They said this, quote, he would wake up really disoriented with nightmares like he was sleepwalking. I've never seen him like that, sleeping in the daytime and talking gibberish. The son is throwing up and couldn't keep anything down. He was like a zombie. In addition to the stomach upset, he slept constantly, had high fevers, and a sore throat. What should we look out for in terms of our kids? I mean, you know, they got a runny nose all the time, and you got kids with ear issues. What should parents especially look out for when you're dealing with something as contagious as this?
I think, Eric, like everything else that I do in pediatrics and all of us do in pediatrics, our relationship with the parent has to be, do you think your child is sick? Then it becomes our job to say, how sick is your child? Right now, we're testing a lot of kids for COVID because it's back and more prevalent than it was a couple of months ago. But if a child has COVID and has no symptoms, that individual child's can be okay. I'm not worried about their having nightmares and being as sick as the child that you just presented. Clearly, that child from Tucson, you said, that child was sick and should be in a hospital.
And finally, you talk about it not affecting children as badly as the vulnerable, as the older Americans and older folks. Is there anything reassuring that you can say about children and COVID, that if they do get COVID, is it true then that they have a better outcome?
Absolutely. If you take as a group children, their outcome is far greater. If overall hundreds of thousands of adults have died, the number of children that have died from COVID is under 1,000. But that said, we're now going into a time in states with very low vaccine rates, Louisiana being number one, Florida being number two. Their pediatric wards are overwhelmed. And you just talked about the child who had to be airlifted in Texas because there were no pediatric beds. So that's what's scary. It's, from my point of view as a pediatrician, one child dead from COVID is one child too many. And we need to do everything to stay on top of that. And we as practitioners are doing that. We're looking very carefully at all kids who get sick and making sure that they don't have what we call a MIS-C, M-I-S-C, which is the more serious inflammatory reaction to COVID.
Dr. Laura Popper, who I guess likens a mask and a vaccination to wearing a seatbelt and having an airbag in a car. You got double protection, especially since in low vaccination rate states, COVID is such a threat to our young people.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay, that's terrific. Dr. Popper, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Arthel.
All right, Eric. Well, the FAA asking airports